Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 4 is line numbers. So write a program that asks the user asks the user for the name of the file. The program should display the contents of the file with each line preceded with a line number followed by a colon. The line numbering should start at 1. Okay, so basically the user is going to enter a name of the file, a name of a file, and the program is going to open that file and display the content of the file, and the program should also start numbering the lines in the file. So if there are 10 lines in the file, then the program should say number 1, this line, number 2, this line, number 3, this line, all the way to 10. If there are 5 lines, it should basically display all the contents in the file line by line, numbering each of them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'll start the program, and as we're doing it, we'll have a clear sense of it. But again, this is one of the programs that it didn't really state how we should create the file. It's assuming that the file has already been created. So we can actually do it two ways. We can actually open a notepad. Notepad if we're using Windows, or text edit if we're using Mac, and type in stuff ourselves, and then allow the user to enter the name of that file and display the contents in there. But the previous program, which is file head display, and actually some of the previous programs in chapter 4, we actually wrote code to write contents in the file. So what I'm going to do, if you don't want to do it this way, you can go ahead and open a notepad, or if you're using Windows, or text edit if you're using Mac, and type in stuff. Basically open the file and type in content, and we'll use that content as the source of input. We'll basically read from that file and then use that file as our source of input. So yes, but when you create that file, save that file in the folder where you're going to save this program. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, if you look at I'll go ahead and open the previous program with file head display here. And sorry, if you didn't see the previous program, or if you don't have access to it, it's fine. What the previous program, the beginning part of it basically allows us to write contents in the file. I'm just going to use that program to create the file. But like I said, you can open a file and then type in stuff yourself. So I'm going to run this program, and it's going to save basically the file in the folder where I save this folder. So I'll just go and copy that file and paste it in my my new folder. So just so that I have content, or I have a file that has content. Okay, but like I said, again, you can open a notepad in Windows, or text edit in Mac, and then type in stuff and save that file in the folder where you're going to save this program, and let's read from that file. Okay, my cough is still there, but it's almost gone. So I keep saying it's almost gone, but it never goes. My cough is still there, by the way. Yeah, so please bear with me. Okay, so please enter a line, and again, we'll verify this file to make sure the contents are in there. So I'm going to enter line 1. Do you want to enter another line? Yes. To enter another line, I'm going to say line 2. I'm not going to use numbers, so that because we're going to actually be I don't want to save this. Let me go ahead and I'm going to cut the question. Okay, now I'll close this without saving it. Okay, so I don't want to store these in there. I want to store regular stuff in there. So because we're going to be numbering the lines, and I don't want it to be I don't want the lines to have numbers in them. So I'm going to enter a line. I'm going to say this. Do you want to enter another line? Yes. Just put stuff in there. Another line? Yes. Basically, I'm just entering random stuff in the line, in the page. Yeah, so basically this file is just looking for the first character to be a Y. If you watch this program, you understand what we're doing. Do you want to enter another line? It's only looking for the first character to be a Y, and that's why this worked. Now I'm going to hit no, or N, and please enter the name of the file. I don't care about that. Basically, the content has been created, so I'm going to go ahead and stop compiling this. I added something here, so I don't really need it. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and close this file. I just wanted to use that program to create a file, but like I said, you can create a file yourself. So I'm going to open that folder. It's in Documents, not Documents, Desktop. Let me go ahead and paste the question again. Okay. So I'm opening. I'll close this mail so we don't get distracted. All right, so I'm opening the program that we did yesterday just to get that file. I could have easily opened the text edit myself and typed in the files, but I just wanted to use one of the programs that we wrote to write the contents. So Programming Challenges Chapter 4 file head display. And so content basically contains the stuff that I just typed. So at least we have a file that contains content. So I'm just going to copy it, and we haven't saved this file yet. Okay, so I'll basically save. Let me go ahead and save this. I'll go ahead and compile it. Okay, it's just comments, and I'll go to Programming Challenges Chapter 4. I'll create a new folder for this one. I'll call it line numbers, and I'll save this as line numbers.java. That's basically how I'm going to name the class. Okay, the public class. All right, so I'll save this as line numbers. It's saved. So now we have the folder. I can go ahead now and go and paste that file that I just created with code. Line numbers. And I'm just going to go ahead and paste it here. Okay, so now we have a file in there with contents. Basically, that's all I wanted to do. But I just wanted to use a program that includes code that actually allows us to write content to the file, instead of just opening the file and typing. But like I said, you can do that if you don't have access to the program. If you don't have access to the program, just go ahead and open a notepad in Windows, text edit in Mac, and then create content in the file. And we're going to read content from that file and then display them by then with line numbers. Okay, it's based on what's in the file. So yeah, at least we have something. So we know this is the file we're going to read from. So the user has to enter contents.txt. Okay. Or else, if you want to add more to the program, create the program in such that the user can first add content to a file and then you can read from that file. But we're just going straight to the point what this program is saying. And at least we wrote a program in the previous question that allowed us to write content in a file with code, although the program didn't ask for that. So we've done something with writing content in a file with code. Okay, all right, so I'm going to start this program by creating a class, and I'll call it line numbers. Take this down. Okay, and I'll go ahead and I'll create the main method. Okay. All right, so let's see what this program is asking. So write the program that asks the user for the name of a file. So let's go ahead and do that. Since we're going to be accepting inputs from the user, let's go ahead and use a scanner to accept input from the user. We can use a JOption pane, but I'm going to use the scanner class to do that. We have a couple of options. We have the scanner, we have the JOption pane. We can use one of them. I'm just choosing to use the scanner class. So to do that, I need to import the scanner class so that this program can have access to the scanner class. So I'm going to import java.util.scanner. And once we create the scanner, we need to create a scanner object so we can use it. So I'm going to create a scanner object. I'm going to call it scanner, and it's going to be called to a new scanner object in memory. And I'm going to pass in the system.in method, which is basically going to accept input from the keyboard. System.in accept input from the keyboard. Okay, byte info from the keyboard, and then convert it. And connect it to the scanner object. Okay, so that we can use the methods in the scanner class to convert it to either doubles or integers or whatever we need it to be. All right, so now we have, let me terminate this line. Now we have a scanner object to ask the user for input. So let's go ahead and ask the user to enter enter a name of a file. Okay, the name of a file. So I'm going to say system.out.print ln, and we're going to say please enter the name of the file. Now, because we've created a file ourselves, we know the file name already. So let's just tell the user to enter content.txt, because that's the file. It's the file that's there. So enter content.txt, because we created a file ourselves, and the user wouldn't know the file name. So this is just an example, just to explain that. Okay, so we need to accept input from the user. So I'm going to use a scanner object, and I'm going to call the next line method. And what the next line method is going to do is it's going to pop up a text box and allow the user to type in something. Whatever the user types is basically going to be converted to a string, but it is a string, and it's going to be returned as a string. Basically, what the user types is going to be returned as a string, and when this scanner.nextLine returns it, we need a place to store it. So I'm going to create a string variable, and I'm going to call it user file name, because that's going to store the user's file name. So user's file name now, user file name is going to store the file name that the user types. Okay, so now we need to open the file. So first, let's represent. Okay, if indeed there's a file. Okay, if indeed there's a file that the user has typed. Okay, there's this file. The user can type in anything, but it could be wrong. So let's go ahead and represent that file. If indeed there's a file, with this same user file name, let's go ahead and represent that file name with a file object. Okay. So I'm going to create a file object. Okay, I'm going to call it file, and I'm going to create a new file object in memory, and I'm going to pass in the user file name. So we're basically connecting. We're creating a file object, and we're connecting it to the file name that the user has typed, if indeed that file exists. Okay, so we've just connected. Okay, the file name that the user has typed. Okay, if indeed it exists, we've connected it with this file object, so we can use it to actually check. We can use this file object to check if the file exists. So let's go ahead and create a while loop, and this is how I want the while loop to work. I'm going to say if while. Oh, no, sorry, not if while. I've mixed if and while at the same time. Okay. So I'm going to say, because the file may not exist, so we need to check to see if that file that the user has typed. Okay, that file name that the user has typed exists. We need to check if that file that the user is referring to exists on the computer or in the location of the program. Or wherever it's saved. So I'm going to call while file. Okay, while file, this file. Okay, dot exist. Okay, dot exist. Actually, I'm going to negate it and say while the file does not exist. Or if we want, no, it's fine. We will keep it this way. We can let's do this. The exclamation sign negates everything in front of it. So file that exists means the file exists, but when you put an exclamation sign in front of it, when you put an exclamation sign in front of it, what you're saying is this: while the file does not exist, the exclamation sign is like the not, or it negates what's here. So while the file does not exist. If the file doesn't exist, let's keep on asking the user. Let's first tell the user that, hey, that file doesn't exist. Let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to copy this print statement and paste it here. Let's system.out.println and say, since we have the file name stored in user file name, we can use it in our print statement and say user file name. I'm going to concatenate it to the string and say user file name does not exist. And we're going to add a string and say, please try again. Or please enter a different file name. Okay. And we're going to give the user a chance to enter it again. So this is basically what this is going to be the same as this line. We're going to pop out a text box. Whatever the user is going to type is going to be returned as a string and stored in user file name. Now the user will type in another file name. So we've already created this file object here. And this file object is representing the file that the user has typed. Okay, the file name that the user has typed, representing that file. Over here, if the file doesn't exist, then that means the user file name is wrong. It doesn't exist. So we've given the user another chance to type in the file name. So because we've already declared this file object, we can go ahead and represent another file given or using the new file name that the user has typed. Okay, the user typed in the new file name here, so we are representing that new file name with the file object file. We've already declared it here, so we don't have to say file. We've already declared the file, okay, as a file object. So it's going to represent that new file that the user has typed to with this file object, and it's going to go ahead and check if that file exists again. If it doesn't exist, it will keep on doing this. But if the file exists, then it's going to exit the loop and do what's below it. So let's continue down below. I apologize for my cough. Okay, I'm very sorry. Okay, so if the file exists, then let's go ahead and read from it. So to read from it, we need a scanner to read from it. Okay, we are going to use the scanner and then use the file that the file, because by this point, if it gets to skip past this point, that means the file exists. So we're going to create a scanner object that is going to use that file as its source of input, as the file that is going to read from. So to do that, I'm going to create another scanner object, and I'll call it file to scan. Okay, or file to scan, or file to scan. File to scan is going to be a new scanner, but then this source of input. Okay, what is going to read from? What is going to read input from? Is the name of the file. Okay, the file object that is representing that file name, or that file that the user typed. So I'm representing that file, and I'm using the file to scan to basically scan from this file. Okay, and again, this file is just representing the file that the user has typed, if indeed it exists. By this point, we know the file exists because this while loop is checking to make sure the file exists before it moves on. So by this point, we know the file exists. So we are connecting this file to scanner object to the file just to be able to get access to it and read from it. So we've done that. We've connected it to file to scan, the scanner object's file to scan. So now let's go ahead and read from it. And we are reading from it, and we want to print it. We want to print line numbers. Okay, so I'm going to create another while loop to go through all the lines in the file. And there is a way to check to see there was a way to check if the end of a file, the end of a line in a file. There's a way to check the end of a line in a file. So if there are 5 lines in a file, there's a method. It's called hasNext, and I'll type it. So I'm going to say while the file to scan dot hasNext, meaning while the file to scan. Okay, this object is basically accessing the content in this file or reading from this file. So we are saying while the file to scan dot hasNext, meaning while the file has a line, it's going to read it line by line. So right now it's reading the first line. Because there's a line, this statement is going to return true. Because there's a line, while file to scan dot hasNext is going to return true. So it has a next. Okay, it has a line. So it reads the first line, basically, and it checks to make sure if there's a line there. Now, if the file has 5 lines, of course, because there's a first line, so this is going to return true. So while it has something, do what's in the while loop, and it's going to move on to the next line and then check again. While it has something, do something in the while loop, and it's going to keep checking. until the file has no line. And if the file has no line, this loop is going to exit out. So this loop is going to do what's in the block. It's going to do what's in the block until there are no more lines. So, but while there's a line in the file, keep doing what's in the loop. So while there's a line in the file, what we want to do is we want to read that line and print it, right? So we want to read that line and print it. So let's go ahead and read that line. And the way we read the line is we use a file to scan. Okay, we use a file to scan dot read dot next line, like this, dot next line. And once we read that line, actually what we want to do is basically to display it. Okay, we can display it basically. So we can use a system.out.print statement and display it. System.out.print line system.out.print line is printing the next line in file to scan. File to scan is reading the next line of the file and printing it. But remember, we want to display with line numbers, right? So let's run this program. Before we do the line numbers, let's run this program. So I'm going to go ahead and compile this. We have a couple of errors, so let's fix it. Cannot find symbol. And what is the symbol? Class file. Okay, so let's see what's happening. Let me compile this again. File. Okay, so that's because we didn't import the file class. We didn't import the file class because we need the file class in order to access the files, or in order to access or use a file object. Okay. Or in order to write to a file, read from a file, and stuff like that, we need to import it. Just like the way we wanted to use a scanner, we imported the scanner class. Anytime you want to use file objects or print writers or write to a file, read from a file, you need to import the java.io.asterisk class. So we're going to import it and say import java.io.asterisk and then terminate it. And so it doesn't know what this file is, then that's why it's probably complaining. So let's compile it again, and it's saying cannot find symbol user file names. Okay, so over here I declared it as user file name, and over here I use it as user file names. Okay, it doesn't know what user file names is because over here I declared it as user file name, and I use user file names here. So I'm going to delete this S and compile it. Okay, another one. All right, so where is it? Unreported exception. Okay, must be caught or declared to be thrown. Okay, so what this is saying is this. So anytime you have a method, so right now we have a main method, all right? So basically this main method or this block, this one, the one that I'm highlighting now, this whole block contains code. Okay, this whole block is in a main method. It's called a main method basically. And what this error is saying is this. It says unreported exception. Unreported. Okay, unreported exception. Java.io.file.not.found exception must be caught or declared to be thrown. All right. So what it's saying is this. Hey, you have code in here that can give an error. That can cause an error. What if the user types in this file? And let's say your computer is full. Okay, it wouldn't have any space to save that file. So in that case, it will throw an exception and say, hey, I can't save this file. Although your code is correct, I can't save the file because your computer is full. Now we have to write code for it to handle it. We have to write our own code to handle, those kind of errors. We have to. Or we have two options. Or we can tell the method that, hey, we haven't learned we haven't learned how to write our own code to handle those kind of errors. So when that happens, please handle it for us. So basically, we can either write our own code to handle those exceptions or those errors, or we can throw the exception back at the method and say, hey, we haven't learned how to write our own code to handle those kind of errors. So please, when that happens, take care of it for us. And the way you do that is you write or you type throws the name of the header, the end of the method header. You type in throws IO exception. See over here it says unreported exception. So because now we are reporting to this method and saying, hey boss, okay, hey boss, pretty much. We're saying boss, look, we haven't learned how to write our own codes to handle these exceptions. Okay, so I'm reporting it to you that, hey, if that happens, for now, please take care of it for me until I learn how to write my own code to handle exceptions. So that's what we are telling the main methods. Kind of. We're saying this method, okay, has code in here that has the potential to cause an error. We haven't learned how to write code to handle those kind of errors. So please, when that happens, I'm reporting it by saying throws IO exception, so that when it happens, you take care of it for me until I learn how to write my own code to handle it. So I'm reporting it by saying throws IO exception. I'm saying this method has the potential to throw an IO exception. It has the potential to throw an IO exception. So when that happens, please take care of it for me. So that's what it means. If you had a method in here, so any method, okay, within a method, any method within a method that has code, okay, about files and print writers and all that, because it has the potential to cause an error. If you had, let's say, a method in a method, in that method that contains the code, okay, at the end of the method header, like this, at the end of it, you also have to include throws IO exception. And because that method, okay, which has file object or file print writer object, because that method is using code like that, okay, and because that method is within another method, that outer method also has to end with throws IO exception. So if, let's say, there's another method that was using code about files and print writers and all that, I would, because that code has the potential to throw an exception, I would have to end that method with throws IO exception. And because that method stays in this main method, I would also have to end throws IO exception at the end of the method header. All right, so that's what it means. So now we've reported it, and we are saying, hey, this method has the potential to throw an IO exception. So when it happens, please take care of it for us. So I'm going to compile this, and it's done. All right, so I'm going to run this, and first let's try to read contents from the file. But before that, let's open the desktop. Right, let's open the folder and see what's in the file. Okay, and the name of the file, Java. The name of the file is contents.txt. So when the user is typing in the file name, the user has to type in contents.txt. So it's line numbers. Oops, let's counter. Line numbers here. Contents.txt has these lines. So we are expecting these lines to be printed. So I'm not going to close. I'm just going to switch back to this and run it, and let's see what happens. So it says, please enter the name of the file. Okay, so I'm going to just enter a random name and hit enter. And now it says, this does not exist. Please enter a different file name. I'm going to enter just content without the .txt. We have to include .txt. You know what? If it gives the error, the first time it's going to tell the user to enter contents.txt. But if it gives the error, we want the user to also know that they have to enter contents.txt. So we're going to say, please enter a different name. Be sure to enter, and I'm going to go ahead and break this to a new line by concatenating the string to the next string on the next line. So please be sure to enter content.txt. I want to surround it with quotations, with double quotations, so I'm going to do that. But when I type double quotation, I don't want it to think that I am opening a quotation here and closing it here. So I want the program to treat this quotation as a double quotation, just a double quotation that I want printed, I want displayed. So I'm going to tell the interpreter to escape this, ignore this double quotation. I'm using the backslash to say, hey, ignore this double quotation, and don't use it as, or don't assume that I'm trying to close this string here. I'm just trying to display it. So just display it, okay? Don't use it in code. That's what I'm doing. I'm going to because I want to surround this contents.txt with double quotation. So right now it's just going to display this, and I want to go ahead and display that too. But I don't want it to treat this as an opening double quotation and this as a closing double quotation. I want you to treat this one as just a string, just to display it. So I'm going to put a backslash in front of it. So it's going to treat this as just a string that's going to be displayed on screen. So it's going to look like this, but it's not going to go ahead and display the backslash. The backslash is just to tell the interpreter that, hey, just display these quotations 1 and 2 as just strings. Okay. Now I'll compile this and then run it and say, please enter name of a file. I'm going to enter content and hit enter. Now it says contents that does not exist. Please enter a different file name. Be sure to enter content.txt. So now I'm going to enter content.txt and hit enter. And remember the file content.txt contained this. And when we compare this to this, it's the same thing. It's pulled out the content of the file. Now the question is telling us to display these lines with line numbers. So the program should display the contents of the file with each line preceded with a line number followed by a colon. So how do we, and it said that the line numbering should start at 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a variable here. I'm going to call that variable. It's going to be an integer. I'm going to call it line numbers because integers, line numbers 1, 2, 3, So line numbers, and I'm going to initialize it to 1 because it said that the line numbering should start at 1. So while there is something in the file, print it, okay, and print a line number to it. We know line numbers start at 1. So let's go ahead and print out the line number. Actually, I'm going to call the line number. Okay, line number. So let's go ahead and print out the line number concatenated with a colon like this. Okay, and then concatenated with a line. So a line number with a colon, a space here. Okay, and concatenated with that line. But the thing is, if this loop runs again, line number will always stay at 1. Okay, if I run this and I type in content.txt and hit enter, line number is always going to have 1, right? And that's not what we want. We want it to say 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is happening to line number each time the loop runs? It's increasing by 1. So let's go ahead and increase line number by 1 by saying line number plus plus. Okay, line number plus plus, or we can say line number plus equals 1. Okay, or we can say line number is equal to line number plus 1. Any of them will work. So line number is equal to, it initially contains so first of all it's going to print the line number, which is 1, but after it's done printing, line number now is going to be equal to 1 plus 1. So line number is now going to be 2. It's going to come back up here, print the next line with 2, and then line number is going to be equal to 2 plus 1, and then the total is going to be 3. And then it's going to come back up here, print the next line with 3. Line number is going to be 3, so 3 plus 1, 4. It's going to store 4 in line number. It's going to go back up to the loop and print the next line with 4, and so on and so forth until there is no line, because this file while header, it's saying while there is something in the file, while this file has a next line, has a next line. So line number is equal to its original plus 1. Or so basically you can write this as a shortcut and say line number plus equals 1. What this means is what I am adding to line numbers is 1. Okay, what I am adding to line numbers is equal to 1. Okay, I am adding something to line numbers. What am I adding? I'm adding 1. You can read it that way. Okay, so what I'm adding to line numbers is 1. Okay, you can read it that way. All right, so line number now is going to be incremented by 1 each time. So I'm going to go ahead and compile this program and run it. I'm going to try a wrong file name and hit enter. This does not exist. Please enter a different file name. Be sure to enter contents.txt. And then I'm going to now enter the right file name and hit enter. And then now it's printing the content of the file with the right line numbers. So it works. If you think about it, we're actually doing something like, with this IDE. It's probably similar to it, but hey, we can do it. We can do something like this. Imagine this code didn't have any line numbers, right? We could have if this was stored in the file, if all this code was stored in the file, we could have used the same idea to print out the content of the file numbered like this. And we've done something very similar with it here. Okay, so this program works, and yeah, if you have any questions, please comment down below, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time with the next program. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.